We've seen a lot of phones with really weird screens recently. We've seen foldable devices that get bigger or smaller. We've seen straight up dual screen devices like the Microsoft Surface Duo. But it's been a while since we've seen swiveling phones. This is the LG Wing, and it's part of LG's Explorer project, which explores different form factors in devices to try to find the new form factor for the future. So from the front, or even the back, the LG Wing looks like a pretty standard smartphone. It's got a big 6.8-inch OLED display, it's got 3 cameras on the back of the phone, and it's just a little bit thicker than your standard smartphone. But that's because it physically swivels the front display to reveal a second square-shaped display underneath. So you might be saying, that's weird. What's the point of a second square-shaped display underneath the main display? And I was skeptical too when I first saw the device. But LG's actually came up with a lot of pretty unique use cases for this thing. Pretty much the first thing that I thought of when I saw the LG Wing is that it would be really great for Uber drivers or delivery drivers, because you can have Google Maps or the Uber app open on one display and have Spotify or the phone open on another display. This phone works really well when mounted to a dashboard, and that's gonna be really useful for a lot of people, because a lot of delivery drivers I've seen have 2 phones, one for navigation and one for something like music, so that could be really handy. And to get the apps on both of these displays, LG has included a feature called App Pairs. And it's really similar to what Microsoft did with the Surface Duo, where you press one button and one app launches on one display, while one app launches on the other display. You could launch an app like YouTube on top while you have Chrome on the bottom, or you could live tweet something from the bottom while you have a live stream going up on the top. There's a lot of different use cases that you could have with this thing. But LG doesn't want it to be all about using 2 apps at the same time. There's actually a lot of use cases where you can use both displays at once in a really weird form factor. So for example, if you have YouTube open on the big display while it's swiveled out, you can have playback controls on the bottom smaller display, so you don't actually have to interact with the main display. Now this is kind of a fringe use case, but it does work pretty well, and it's really nice to see that LG actually went the extra mile to implement these kind of features. And the other thing that I kind of immediately think about when I see this swivel display is emulators. If you were to emulate like a PlayStation 2 game or a GameCube game, those games are formatted for widescreen displays already. So you could have a controller on the bottom display that you could play with your thumbs, while the main display is being used for the actual content. That's really cool. And LG also thought about how they could use the swivel display to make the camera experience even better. And LG's always kind of been an innovator in the camera space, not necessarily in the quality, but in the features that they deliver on their phone. Now, a cool new feature that's taking advantage of the swivel display is the new Gimbal Mode that LG's implemented here. You're probably used to seeing a standard camera, a wide-angle camera, and a telephoto camera on the back of a phone if there are 3 cameras, but LG actually did a standard camera and 2 wide-angle cameras. Now the reasoning for this is because they wanted you to be able to run around with your phone unswiveled and use it like a gimbal. So one of those cameras is actually rotated 90 degrees to already be in a landscape orientation. Basically, what LG is doing with this gimbal mode is they're cropping in on the sensor and then letting you pan around using this joystick. There's also all these different modes that try to stabilize in the horizontal plane, try to stabilize in the vertical plane, and there's a mode that just kind of lets you follow people around and it'll kind of float around like a normal gimbal would. Now this is pretty cool because you're holding the phone very similarly to how you'd be holding a regular gimbal if a regular camera was on it, or if you were using something like a DJI Osmo Mobile 4 or something like that. It feels a lot like you're using a normal gimbal. And you can also record yourself at the same time, but of course, when you have a weird swivel display like that, you can't exactly fit a camera module in that top display. So LG put a pop-up selfie camera in the back part of the phone, which we haven't seen in a while. But if you ignore the swivel interface or you don't really want to use it all the time, that's fine. The LG Wing does kind of feel like a normal smartphone. Like, yeah, it's definitely a little bit thicker. I mean, it's about the same Z height as the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra if you count the camera bump, but it's really not that much thicker than a regular smartphone. And it's got some pretty respectable specs too. It's running the Snapdragon 765G, 8 GB of RAM, and up to 256 GB of storage with micro SD card expansion. Also, there's a 4,000 mAh battery, which should help this phone last a little bit longer than some other LG devices. And there's no headphone jack, which is kind of strange, but LG did want to note that that's a one-off thing. That's not going to be the case for all the other LG phones that come out in the future. It just happened to work that way with the LG Wing. So LG didn't include full pricing or availability for the Wing yet, but it did say that it would come in around $1,000, which is still pretty expensive for a Snapdragon 765G device. But if you think about it, the weird devices that have foldable displays or dual displays are pretty much at least $1,400 at this point. So if you want to get a phone that can be a normal phone when you want it to be, but can have 2 displays when you also want it to be, this could be an interesting option. But let me know what you guys think about the LG Wing in the comment section down below. Do you think having 2 displays, especially a small square display, is actually worth it? I personally think that LG is going to find more use cases for this style of device, and it's kind of fun to use within the few hours that I've been using it. So let me know what you think, and I'll catch you all in the next video.